Erie. It's Monday, December 9th. Welcome back for another Flagship City Sports Talk brought to you by Quick Fill. My name is Nick Artman, as always, joined in studio by Mr. Clean Paul Adamczak, the great and powerful Rich Smith, Isaac Petcash hanging out with us online as well. Fellas, how we doing this morning?
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Doing good.
Good to be back in the studio.
It's a beautiful Monday because the snow's not falling down and the driveway's clear for the first time in a week and a half.
Amen, brother.
That's because you didn't have to drive downtown and try to find a parking spot. It was like a Jeep commercial where you're trying to slide your throw. You know what? Throw this camera up here, Rich. Throw this camera up because it's like trying to, you see the mound of snow at Ascenderia across the street. That's what it's like to try and park around here. You're trying to figure out that angle to get up on the snow to get back off.
So guys, all the bumps and whatnot on the downtown roads, my wife has to drive to Gannon for work. She was convinced driving downtown over the weekend that those bumps were going to send her into labor. That's how bad it was.
Now, was she trying to then hit the bumps, or was she trying to avoid?
I think she was. She's ready to be done. She's 39 weeks this week, so she was all for it. If we had to go to make a detour over to AHN.
Oh man, I don't blame you. I remember Kate being near the end, and it was like, get this baby out of here.
Yeah.
Oh well, we'll be on Gem City watch for that. We'll need a live report from the hospital there, IP.
Oh, you got it. You know.
And to find those reports, we are here in the Talk Erie studio. We are on talkerie.com on 105.9 FM, but we are also on socials at Gem City SN. We are part of the Gem City Sports Network. Find us anywhere this morning. Comment along. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know where we are wrong. All right, we got a lot to get into here in the A block. Let's get into the North Shore Rewind, brought to you by Duska's Funeral Home. Football is over, but we still have a lot of athletes that we want to cover here in District 10 and in Erie County. So we're going to take this A block and turn it into our D10 Players of the Week, Erie County Players of the Week. And to kick us off, Paul, why don't you go first today?
A lot of players on my list, but I got to start with these two guys. Mason Friedman and Hunter Villa out of Fort LaBeouf. The Bison, aided by Friedman's 23 and Villa's 20, won their season opening tournament with an 83-69 victory against Erie First Christian and their star, Avery Collins, who had 30 points in the loss. Bison are now 3-0 under first-year head coach Mike Coletta. They've got Northeast and Union City in their next two, so the winning looking to continue out there in Waterford.
Yeah, you talked about Avery Collins too, and it's not necessarily my first, but I'll throw them out there since you're talking to them. Avery Collins at Erie First Christian, 29 points in a game against Westfield. Yep. Close game, 68-65. 4 3-pointers in that game, and then has 22 points on Monday, so the game prior to that, in a 61-45 loss to Fairview. Collins is looking great here. The team maybe need to work some things out, but Collins, like you said this before the show started, Collins looks like the best player in D10 right now.
Yeah, he very well may be. Had 30 in the game, and 69 points, and you got 30 of them. Need some help.
Yeah. And you're pushing
30 or what do you have? 29 of 45 before that.
Yeah,
just give my man some help.
Yeah, pushing 50 points in 2 games. That's a good start to the season. IP, what about you? What do you got here this morning?
So I liked Avery Collins on my list as well, but I actually we're talking local sports. I went the college route because I think that there's a team over the weekend that, after losing the conference championship game, maybe was a bit down, and Matt Darling got his squad back up. How about Journey Blevins for Gannon women's volleyball in the NCAA Atlantic Regional semis and the Atlantic Regional final? She has 13 kills in the win against West Virginia State. That was ranked number 5 of the country at the time. That sent Gannon to the regional final, where they ended up winning, overwheeling 3-1, 21 kills for Journey in that win for the Golden Knights. You add that up, 34 in total over the course of the 2 matches. She was tremendous. And now guess what, folks? Gannon is back in the NCAA 2 Elite 8 when they travel to Sioux Falls starting on Thursday. Journey Blevins a big part of the reason why Gannon was able to get that done over the weekend.
Yeah, they're good.
They're scary good.
Yes,
I'll proffer to say, and Matt's probably going to laugh if he hears this. I spoke with my wife. I said, "Did Gannon lose the conference championship game on purpose?"
Just to fire themselves up.
Just to fire themselves up, because they looked unstoppable in the entire Atlantic Regional. You look at the way they were able to dominate. It really wasn't competitive. They lost 2 sets the entire way through. Just an incredible way to get back to the Elite 8, and they'll be a tough out again.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, let me get mine. we'll talk more about Gannon here in a second. I'm going to go to the girls' side, D10 girls basketball. This was somebody we highlighted on the Thursday show on Gem City on YouTube, where Michaela Presser-Palmer, and Paul talked about her last week here on Flagship as well, and how she's a player to watch coming into the basketball season. Well, her first 2 games, she put up 56 points. 31 points in a 48-20 win against Commodore Perry. She had 12 field goals, 3 3-pointers, and she was 4-4 from the free throw line. And then she has 25 points in the Wildcats' 40-24 win over Corey. This also, per Go Erie, moves her into seventh place in the program's all-time scoring list with 1,133 career points.
And remember, she's only a junior.
I didn't remember that, but now that you reminded me of that, that's insane.
Yeah.
She had 1,000 points in her sophomore year?
By the end of her sophomore year, yes. They are 2-0 now. They've got a big one coming up tomorrow night at Fairview.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking at Rich for the time. We're on a time crunch this morning, so I was making sure.
Lot to get in, absolutely.
Go ahead, Paul. Hit me with one more.
Look, I got to shout out Aubriana Scott from Girard. Yellow Jackets, aided by her 8 points, won their season opener, 35-32 over Cambridge Springs on Saturday. Really, I had to say that to say this. Shout out to Coach Heidi Kalicki, who took a team with 4 players less than 2 years ago and has righted the ship at a former perennial powerhouse girls basketball program.
Kalicki had the honor of having my son in 2nd grade. She needs all the praise she can get. She is a wonderful lady.
and she's done a nice job at Girard as well.
All right. Paul, you ready for a 2-minute drill?
We got 17 names. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, Gannon Volleyball headed to the Division II Elite 8 with a win over Wheeling. Journey Blevins was tremendous. Allie Sorensen also had 11 blocks and 10 kills in that game. Gannon's 26-7. Their opponent will be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with matches set for December 12th through 14th. Edinboro women's basketball cruised to a dominant 73-44 win over East Stroudsburg, holding the Warriors to single digits in 2 quarters. Mara Suman and Morgan Gentile led the Scots with 12 points apiece, while Gabby McDuffie added 11. Bree Claxton added 22 points to lead number 6 ranked Gannon to a dominant 78-44 win over Shippensburg, improving to 12-1 overall and 4-0 in PSAC play. Gannon shot a season-high 53.6% while holding Shippensburg to just 22.2%. The Golden Knights extended their defensive streak, keeping opponents under 30% shooting to 3 straight games. Over to the boys' side, freshman Pace Prosser scored 26 points and grabbed 9 rebounds to lead number 22 Gannon to a 173 win over Shippensburg, marking their 8th straight victory. Gannon, now 8-2 overall and 4-0 in PSAC play, dominated the second half with a 21-5 run and forced 24 turnovers. Let's go to the Erie Otters. Secured a thrilling 5-4 overtime win against the Steelheads in Brampton, their first game there in nearly 12 years. Malcolm Spence scored twice, including the game winner just 41 seconds into overtime, while Martin Mishiak, Kerry Terrance, and Callum Hughes also found the net. Erie outshot the Steelheads 35-33 and took 4 of 6 points on their road trip. And wrapping up, Slippery Rock football, seeded 3rd in the NCAA Division II semifinals, will face Ferris State on December 14th at 3:30. The Rock, with a 12-1 record, earned the Super Region 1 title and is making its 4th semifinal appearance, looking to reach the national championship for the first time.
They look really good right now.
They've been good for years. Just another, death taxes and Slippery Rock football.
You know what? This was a game they lost early on in the year. So you like the comeback win.
Oh, yeah.
And the semifinal game before this, did you see the play that won them the game?
I didn't see it, but I read about it. I think Mike Fenner tweeted it.
Yeah, it was like triple overtime or something like that, and they needed a touchdown to win. Well, they do before Josh Allen made it cool, they do the hook and ladder play to score in the corner of the end zone and to win the game, and it was huge. I mean, it was like, go for it. Coach Sean Lutz down there is just a really talented coach and has those guys really in a place where they have a shot at the D2 title. They maybe, they looked like they lost a couple players from last year. They didn't really early on in the season didn't look like that team to beat this year, but coming here into the playoffs, they've showed up and they're playing rough.
I was to say, end of season teams, once you figure out who the dudes are, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, coaching and playing, it's a process. The season lasts this long that's why you can't count a team out early on, because they haven't really, the nature of high school and college football is players leave, players come in. It takes some time to adjust. So a great job by Coach Letts and that coaching staff.
Yep. Hey, quick shout out to the team over at Go Erie. We wouldn't be able to pull a lot of these stats if they weren't doing their thing. Appreciate the athletic directors getting them the information and for them putting that out there. Just incredible work pulling. I mean, it's a lot of D10 basketball to pull from. So kudos, guys. All right, that was the North Shore Rewind brought to you by Dustin's Funeral Home. We got to take a break. When we get back, we're bringing back T. Frank Carr from Blue White Illustrated. Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quickfill. Local football, high school football is over. We still got football to talk about, fellas. I know we get hype about these kind of things, and it's a little sad when high school season ends because you kind of know the end is nigh, but college is still running.
Now, if you ask a high school football coach, football never ends.
No, they're right back into looking at it next year. Yeah. I need that season in my life. Well, we have some college news that we really want to get into in the next couple segments, and to do that, there's nobody better to bring in to talk about Penn State football than T. Frank Carr from Blue White Illustrated. T. Frank, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm having a smorgasbord of film buffet this morning, trying to wrap up the Big Ten championship game while also doing what all fans want, which is, okay, great, I don't care about that anymore. What's the next thing? Tell me about SMU. So it's like it's a hamster wheel, and that's on a treadmill, and you have to just keep running. So excited and interested in all of this stuff. So I'm glad we want to get into all of it today with you guys.
No, yeah, we're excited to have you back too, man. Any chance we can get to bring you on the show, we're doing that. Now, you mentioned checking out that tape and putting in that smorgasbord. Both of us are going to forget. So why don't you go ahead and plug that? Where can they find that information that you're doing all this work for?
Yeah, bluewhiteillustrated.com. You can sign up right now for $1 and get access to what we do, our premium content. I do film analysis, but we have the industry leader in recruiting, in Ryan Snyder and Sean Fitz. Our coverage there is the best that you're going to find if you want to know about the next class of 2026. And in 2025, as it still kind of wraps up, there's still some players out there for Penn State football. Our insider reporting, Nate Bauer, Greg Pickle, just the best team that you'll find anywhere. We've been assembled to give that to you, and we absolutely deliver that. So $1 at bluewhiteillustrated.com if you want to use the promo code PSU1 when you sign up.
There we go. I know it's I've looked at it myself, and it is top tier work that you guys are putting in over there. So appreciate you guys. Let's start with the bad. All right, let's go back in time. Let's go to Indianapolis, and
let's eat some vegetables, right? Let's start with that. That's how I eat my food too. Like, oh, let's just get this part over with so I can have the protein at the end.
Exactly. Let's go back to Indy. Unfortunately, the Penn State Nittany Lions fall to Oregon by a score of 45-37. But this game was, I think, a tale of two halves. You know, you had a lot of what I miss.
I wrote down Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities.
I stole Paul's line. We've been doing this together a little too long. Yeah, a tale of two halves. I mean, Penn State looked a little flat in the beginning and then really poured it on in the end. The defense really stepped up. But T. Frank, you've been watching this tape. You've been grinding this team all season. What was your biggest takeaway from the Nittany Lions in this game?
Do you want to start with the offense or the defense? Because it's two very different conversations.
Let's start with the bad news first. Which one do you want to go with?
Yeah, let's start with the defense. And the offense really comes out of the decision making and the game plan, in my opinion, of James Franklin even said it before the game. This is a heavyweight fight. You're going to get hit in the mouth. You got to respond. And to me, when you look at the offensive game plan, the whole point was we can't stop this team for 4 quarters. So let's go score some football. And, you know, that was the plan on offense. But to the defensive point, I actually came up with a new footballism after watching this game. Speed makes you stupid.
I think I heard that PSA in high school.
Or if you have ADHD, it makes you focus real good.
I'm at Dr. Artman.
So Oregon is really fast, but they have a big physical offensive line, and Jordan James is phenomenal. Best running back in the Big Ten. So you have this dichotomy of how do you stop them, because you need to dedicate resources to stopping the run. And the minute you do that and you take players out of coverage, then suddenly you've got electric wide receivers. We all saw what Tez Johnson did, right? The real problem was Penn State's details in the first half were terrible. I would say it's even the tale of a first quarter and then 3 quarters of gameplay.
Yep, I agree.
So the first drive, Oregon comes out in a tackle over, meaning they've got their left tackle lined up at tight end. They get their tight end lined up at left tackle. And Penn State just flat out isn't ready for that. And you can see the very first play of the game, if you can go back and watch the replay, look at Denai Dennis Sutton screaming at Zane Durant, trying to get him to adjust, move the line over, because when you do that, you need to move the whole line. Basically, you create a new center and so that you can counter what they're doing.
Yeah.
Nobody listens. So he goes into the B gap, and now suddenly there's a free edge. So details weren't great. Secondly, and this is the part I give a lot of credit to the Oregon staff. Not only do they start with that wrinkle and then get like 15 yards off the bat, they were able to take Penn State's biggest strength and make it a weakness. So Denai Dennis Sutton is not the same. He's a good physical run defender, right? He's a big physical guy. But for the most part, Penn State uses speed with Abdul Carter and Zane Durant to stop the run.
Yeah.
When most effective, they are slipping blocks and getting into the backfield. And Oregon saw that in film and said, okay, wherever you want to go, we'll just let you go there and then run outside. So instead of their typical zone blocking, they went more and pivoted to more of a pin and pull, which means block those guys down and then run around them.
Yep.
And Abdul Carter obliged by going inside, and now super fast Jordan James and all these running backs and all these receivers are in space against not very fast Kobe King and not as fast secondary for Penn State football. So now you've got Penn State on their heels. Now the speed's making you stupid. You're trying
and the team's not built to play like that, I don't think.
No, well, so they're usually the faster team. And that's the thing. Like, they're usually the team that has the speed advantage, and they can play clamp down lock man coverage against receivers. And they can't do that in this game either. So once the running game gets going and those guys up front are not beating players to the point of attack, now they're getting into the secondary, and you aren't playing. You're playing with a nickel corner, and those guys have to play deep to keep a lid on the Oregon passing attack. So once they pivoted to their RPO game, which means it's a run play till it's not, and now we're going to throw the ball over the middle to Jordan James, I'm sorry, to Tez Johnson
Yeah.
is like, oh my gosh, it was so frustrating to watch because you watch these guys who have been good all season just melt when they're trying to tackle that guy.
Yeah.
And just the yards after the catch were a major factor in the game because you have yards after contact in the run game. You have yards after catch with Tez Johnson getting a touchdown on a broken play. And then, of course, a touchdown, explosive plays, just free in space.
Yep.
So it was really a situation where you've got this problem you can't solve.
Sure.
And yet somehow they were, well, I'll tell you in a minute how they were able to solve it later. And spoiler alert, it's not a whole lot of what Penn State did for them to like stop Oregon in the second half.
Yeah.
T. Frank, a lot of bad that you just mentioned from that game. I was reading your tweets a little bit, so I kind of know where you're at on this, but I want to kind of delve into it a little bit more. The officiating in that game. Head official Cole Newpel got some time off from his job at the glue sniffing factory to referee the game Saturday night. How much of that played into the final score? A one possession game where Oregon got at least 21 points off bad calls or no calls.
So this is the problem. I have a hard time going all the way to the refs are the reason Penn State lost because Oregon did all of those things schematically that made them so wrong in situations where they committed penalties. But at the same time, on a broken play, Dylan Gabriel rolls out of the pocket in an RPO and throws 25 yards down the field. And there's a lineman obviously past where you're supposed to be if you're in that situation. Way past. But this is the thing is like they don't ever call that in college anyway. So like it matters in this situation because Gary Danielson called that out on TV and pointed that out. That is a regular thing that happens in college football that they don't call. And it's part of the fabric of the game. The holding calls against Abdul Carter, fairly obvious, right? Those are the ones that are frustrating because it's not like it's inside where you can miss some of those things. And
it's at the point of attack.
It's at the point of attack. He's literally on an island because I think they were sliding the protection. So he's alone. There's no way to miss that. Right. And yet they did not pull the flag in those situations. And it is a compounding factor where Penn State had to play their best game from a mental and execution standpoint. They didn't do that. They needed to get a favorable situation from the refs, kind of like the Ohio State game.
Sure.
They could not win that game if the refs didn't throw the flag for defensive holding and the flag stayed in the pocket in these big games. Yeah. And so Penn State needs to be better than the environment, and they were not on Saturday. So it is a factor, but I don't want to go to full collusion. The Big Ten wants Oregon number one, because once you pull that genie out of the bottle, people aren't responsible enough with that information. We've seen what happens in culture when we when we dive fully into conspiracy theories. So like, I'm always a little bit like, let's trust in reality, but also it's a factor for sure.
No, for sure. And if that's the case, if it's the new team in Big Ten that's getting the Big Ten championship, you're going to see the Big Ten become the Big 30 really quickly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's coming anyway. Like, let's be real. That's coming anyway. The ACC is pretty much done.
T. Frank, I don't know how much time we have left in this segment, Nick, and tell me if we got to take a break.
Yeah, we got to go. Let's save it for when we come back. Save it when we come back. T. Frank's sticking around with us. When we come back, we are going to be talking more Penn State football. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. We're rolling here this morning, and I know, just like we had to hit T. Frank's promo at the start, which remind me, T. Frank, we'll put that in the end as well, in case we both forget. But before I forget, we need to take a second to thank all of our sponsors: Quick Fill, Duska's Funeral Home, Dauber Auto Supply, John's Wildwood Pizza, Denny's Sales and Service. Without them, we wouldn't be here for you. All right. So let's put the Big Ten.
Sorry, I know that we got limited time. Your intro is a banger. I was here just popping along. Hell yeah.
You know, we need something to hype us up at 9 o'clock in the morning, so we had to find the best we could. Appreciate that, though, brother. No, that's good stuff. So let's put the Big Ten championship behind us. Maybe didn't go the way we wanted to as Penn State fans. I think they hung in there against Oregon. But the good news is we're moving on to the college football playoff, which I think is just kind of cool having, this is maybe the nerd in me backing up a second and going, okay, Penn State got to play in the first ever Big Ten championship against Oregon. Oregon's first time in the Big Ten. Now, we have the expanded college football playoff, and Penn State gets to be a part of that as well. And maybe, I don't know, coming off a game against Oregon, maybe they pulled the right straw because they come in against SMU. Nothing against SMU, but if you're talking about conferences like we were a little bit ago, this might be a good first pull for the Nittany Lions. T. Frank, what's your kind of preview of this game?
Yeah, so not only that, if you want first ever home playoff game for a program, and they're one of the teams to be able to host at Beaver Stadium, one of the most iconic stadiums in America. So also pretty cool. I think James Franklin wants the extra week of rest, but at the same time, here we are. SMU coming from the conference they come from, the jersey scouting, as we've talked about it. I am just getting into watching their offense. But as of right now, it looks like a modern spread offense. And so it's going to present Penn State, I think, with an opportunity with the players that they have not being able to play that 3 safety defense that they want. I think it's a fair matchup at the moment, just from a schematic standpoint of what they put on the field and what Penn State is able to do. Right off the bat, linebackers in space covering against athletes is going to be another thing in this game, because maybe they don't have the same athletes as Oregon, but just watching what they were trying to do, I went back and I started actually with a little bit of Duke and SMU, because I wanted to see Manny Diaz, Penn State defensive coordinator in 2023, how this scheme looked against those players. And Rhett Lashley actually coached for Manny Diaz, was his offensive coordinator at Miami 2020 and 2021. So there's a lot of familiarity between the style of defense that Penn State plays and, of course, what he's used to seeing. So I think it's a really interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a good matchup for SMU and for Penn State to see who's better at a lot of these things. So it's going to be really interesting from, the X's and O's perspective. But I think I can make a case right now without getting into the details of the player talent. Yeah. It's a good matchup for both teams. There's familiarity and their scheme, and there's a lot of stuff that Penn State can do in this game, I think.
T. Frank, I want to talk specifically about one player that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's Drew Aller. I think for me, Saturday was a grow-up moment for him. It was his first total touchdown game since Kent State. He threw 3 touchdowns for the first time since USC and Purdue. I mean, you've seen him grow, I think, a little bit, but my concern for him was, okay, off-schedule throws, outside the pocket. Is he going to have that ability to do what now mobile athletic quarterbacks can do? Granted, I know it was his lowest completion percentage since the USC game, but what do you make of Drew's performance from Saturday? And do you think he now has the tools and has grown up enough to be able to win games in the playoff, knowing the road that they have is probably the most favorable road of any team in the playoff?
So James Franklin was sort of asked this question during his media availability yesterday, and he basically said it's game plan specific. Which goes back to what we said about the defense. They knew going in that they weren't going to be able to stop Oregon. They needed to score points. So I think that this always comes off the wrong way. The coaching staff does not tell him not to throw the ball deep. They tell him to be responsible. From the way that I've asked questions, the way we've learned about this, of how they coach 50-50 balls. But generally, I think the conversation was, Drew, the restrictor plate is off. Like, go be you. Go be great. And the frustrating thing is You saw the high-end plays when he does that, and he's aggressive, and he's that fine line between crazy football guy who's super intense, and you get to see that internal side of him that's yelling at the refs and is pissed off every time they don't get to, snap the ball when there's an encroachment penalty or whatever. And then the guy who goes a little too far. And the problem to me was that he overshot the assignment a little bit. He was too aggressive at times. That final play of the game, it was not a good pass from a ball location. It was the right decision. It was the wrong decision from the time context and the ball placement. And Trey Wallace has to win there.
Yeah.
You can't get cut off on that route because the receiver has a responsibility to be at the catch point. He got beat as well. So that was a bad combination of factors that ended the game. But Drew Aller also gave Oregon 7 points in the middle of a comeback. We make the Penn State defense maybe lost the game by having such a bad start from a communication standpoint. Drew Aller threw an interception that landed Oregon at the 1 yard line, giving them 7 points in a game that ended in a 1-score loss. So all these things factor into the fact that they're not in that game without Drew Aller dealing the way he did. And making some of those plays, that 4th down touchdown to Trey Wallace was beautiful. That is the apex of what he can be.
Yeah.
And the question is, what lessons did they learn from that? Is he going to go back into a shell and be more conservative?
Right.
Or is he going to feel himself and go, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to keep throwing the football. Because the path to a championship is Drew Aller saying, screw it, I'm going to throw the football. And I think that he can dial in that accuracy and just slow down a little bit. Because there were some obvious touchdowns. We all saw them. I don't need to recount them. Where they had a touchdown and he just rushed his mechanics just a little bit. And it was just wide of being the guy that Dylan Gabriel can't match.
It was almost like he was trying to play a little bit of hero ball.
So I don't even know that it was hero ball. This is the problem. Is like, it's not, these weren't Sean Clifford interceptions where he's just like, doesn't know what he's seeing and throwing into the wrong coverage. Drew knows what he's doing. Yeah. He just wasn't accurate on some of those passes. And that's the whole point I made about Drew Aller for 3 years now, going all the way back to when he was a junior in high school. The out of structure stuff that Isaac, that you were talking about, he's been able to do that his whole career. It's just about building it responsibly into a quarterback that is bulletproof. And he's still learning that process of, playing within himself, but understanding that within himself is so much more than most other quarterbacks because of what he can do physically, but more importantly, mentally. Yeah. I just want to stress this. I've not watched a Penn State quarterback that sees the field, and I'm watching the coach's film a day after in my pajamas, and I'm like looking at everything from, I can see all the pieces, and I'm like, hey, that's the right read. How the hell did he see that?
Right.
He's on the field with like 12 people in front of him.
He doesn't have that sky cam that you have.
Yeah, I want to stick with the Drew Aller talk. You talked about the tale of two halves. I think with Aller, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times in that game because he missed
on all these literary quotes today.
I did not go. I took AP English like 15 years ago. I have not brushed up on my Dickens for this conversation. I'm sorry.
Listen, that's the only line of the book I know. So I'm gonna use it this way.
Is it the first line or the second?
The very first line. That's it. That's as far as I got.
Spark Notes took care of the rest.
So he missed on so many of those easy throws. He had the 2 bad interceptions. I think it was his lowest completion percentage of the season, but showcases arm talent. You saw that touchdown throw late in the 4th while he's being held. Incredible. The running ability, the toughness to hang in there. He's a natural playmaker. I put 3+ signs next to natural playmaker. My question is this about Drew Aller, and it kind of extends to Andy Kotelnicki. We heard he's getting the interview for the head coaching job at West Virginia. How does that decision affect Drew Aller's decision whether to stay at Penn State or to enter the draft? Because he's an NFL talent, but he's not polished enough, in my humble opinion.
So we've actually done some reporting on this over at the site. And, there's my promo again for going and joining BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. It's all TBD. If he wins that game against Oregon and he is that guy, then we're having a very different conversation because you're judged on 2 things as a quarterback: stats and QB wins. Hashtag QB wins with a Z. And right now he doesn't have the QB wins because he's lost to Ohio State. He's lost to Michigan. He's lost to Oregon. He's lost to Ole Miss. Like, he's got an impressive record other than against the biggest games, against the biggest teams. And NFL decision makers, surprisingly, that matters a lot to them at the quarterback position. I think it's relevant and also erroneous, right? Because the defense and everything else is part of the conversation. And in this offense, the way it's been constructed this year with Tyler Warren as the feature, that does not constitute the stats for him to be a part of the Heisman conversation, throwing for thousands of yards and hundreds of touchdowns. So does he have the resume to be a first-round draft pick other than what you just said in terms of the physical abilities and the highlights?
Mm-hmm.
I think so, and I think eventually he's a first-round quarterback. But where in the first round and if the first round? And so I think that that's a conversation that, internally and externally we can have either way. And I don't want to tip my hand about what I know and don't know, but I also know
that's exactly what we want you to do.
That can change, right? So if they make a run and he is now, let's say they make a run through the bracket and he plays and they beat Georgia, and suddenly like, okay, now we're having a different conversation about Drew Aller because he's a championship quarterback, going all the way deep in the playoffs. So I don't think the story is written yet, but I do agree with you that at the beginning of the season, I thought he was making this turn towards unbelievable decision maker that was going to throw the ball into tight windows and ace all the tests.
Sure.
And the way it's played out, it hasn't really worked out that way.
Yeah.
So to me, my personal opinion, all those things aside, I want him to go, if that makes sense, because I want him to have that success going forward. Having met him and I just you can't help but root for this guy when you meet him.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
He's a great guy.
Yep.
So
we'll have to see.
I hope that is the case. But as of now, I think you're right that there's still that last leg of development for him to be maybe a number 1 overall pick eventually.
Yep. And we'll have to see how that goes. T. Frank, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us, talking some Penn State football. Guys, make sure you go check out Blue White Illustrated. Follow at Thomas Frank Carr for all those clips. We got to take a break. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. You know, I feel like every time we have T. Frank on, it's like he just takes us to school.
Oh, he's so good. We just said during the break, I just like sitting back and like listening. I almost forget that I'm on the radio with him. Like I can ask him questions. Like, oh, that's a good point. Oh, I didn't see that. That's really cool.
I'm like, I hate to cut this off, but we got to go to a break. Yeah, we'll have to bring him on for, post-game analysis.
In 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, man. Well, a lot of stuff to still get to in this show, and we only got about 10 minutes left. We need time to go ahead and overreact to the weekend of NFL football. Isaac, hit us with some overreactions.
All right. Well, I'm going to start in the college route because we don't normally do college football, but we just came off some Penn State talk. So why not? I think it deserves it. And we just talked about Penn State and Aller's playing a little bit better. The defense is something left to be desired. But did you guys see the draw for the Nittany Lions in the playoff? Whoo! The sixth seed is a winner. They get SMU, and then it'll probably be 2 touchdown favorites against Boise State. If Penn State doesn't make the college football playoff semifinals, guys, James Franklin's got to go. This is too easy for the Nittany Lions. And if they don't get there, massive underachievement. See ya, James.
I'll go first. I don't think that's an overreaction. And I mentioned this a couple weeks ago when we talked about James Franklin. And listen, let me start by saying I think Franklin is an amazing college football coach. If Penn State lets him go, he will have a job in a week making double what he made at Penn State, which is a lot. Google it. But I agree with you, and I think where the pressure will come, it'll come from the fan base, it'll come from the alumni, it'll come from the university, because the running narrative with James Franklin is that he can't win big games. He can't beat top 10 teams.
It's a true narrative.
Right. No, I agree. So I don't think it's deserving. And I wouldn't say he needs to be fired, but I would say that if they do not make the semifinals, there's a chance that he is fired because of the pressure coming from the alumni, the board, the university.
I think it's an overreaction. I don't see any way that Franklin gets fired unless they completely S the bed. Fall off the wagon. I was trying to find another word for it, but yeah, exactly. A radio for FCC compliant way of saying it. He does. You're absolutely right, Isaac. The narrative is what it is because that's what he's been. He also does win a lot of bowl games. Yeah. I'm not super nervous about SMU. I am nervous about potentially Boise State. Ashton Gianti is really good. That good. Penn State's rush defense got a little exposed over the weekend, but I still think they're very, very good. I don't think he gets fired. I just, unless they just completely come out flat and it's like, what did they do for the last 13 days? I don't see any way he gets fired.
My thing in this topic is simply this, is what's the standard that you hold yourself to if you're Penn State? I remember back, I think it was 2018 when Penn State lost to Ohio State in that one possession game where they were up by 2 scores late. And James Franklin says, we've gone from being a good program to a great program. We're not elite yet. Yeah. Well, now it's 2024. You're still not elite. So what's the standard? Are you okay with being a great program where you win 10, 11 games and never win a championship? Or do you want to be on the likes of Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia?
Sure.
Because it just hasn't happened yet. And James Franklin is now going on, sitting at a decade without any of this success. So that's my college overreaction. Let's talk some NFL, guys. Biggest game over the weekend, Bills and Rams. Josh Allen, a magician. He goes receiving a touchdown and a rushing touchdown last week. He goes 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns this week. But what stood out to me was the decision at the end of the game with the quarterback sneak and the timeout, the debacle. And I went back and I thought, 13 seconds, there it is all over again. Sean McDermott is going to cost the Bills a game at some point in the playoffs. It just seems like inevitable.
You go first this time.
Not an overreaction. I think, boy, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be Sean McDermott. I don't think the Bills win the Super Bowl. That's just my gut feeling. You can call me a Dolphins homer. Like, I'm sure that plays into it, but I'm just giving you my real take. I don't know if it's going to be Sean McDermott that costs the Bills, but I am pretty sure it's not going to be Josh Allen.
Oh, no, I agree. And I don't, McDermott is kind of like Tomlin in a sense where neither one of them understand, I think, the game management side of things, like when to use timeout, the clock management side of things, I guess I should say. McDermott is a great X's and O's guys. Tomlin is your team builder. So I think that comes down to, you're referencing the timeout with under a minute left or about a minute left in the game, and that decision, they run the quarterback sneak, and what does that do? That just gives the Rams more time. So it's not a call in the right moment. And I think,
who made that call, McDermott or Joe Brady?
Well, that's kind of where I'm going. Right. Is it who made the quarterback sneak call?
Yeah.
Is it Brady or is it McDermott? So I agree with you where I think that, is it McDermott's fault? I can't say that because I don't know for sure.
From the coach perspective, football's really complicated, but also sometimes it's really, really simple. Who's your best player? Give that guy the ball.
Right. Give it to Allen in the shotgun. Let him make that first read. And
in high leverage moments,
first read, run.
Think players, not plays.
Yep.
Josh Allen is your dude. Well, might as well have our 6'5", 245-pound quarterback just go straight up the middle.
Right.
There's no handoff. There's no quick pitch. There's no chance for that ball to get, messed up in some sort of fashion. Just snap it to him and let the big fella go forward.
So if you change the question to the Bills coaching staff will cost the Bills a game at some point in the playoffs, I would agree with you.
Yeah, and I look at the way, too, that Buffalo played this game. It really concerns me that James Cook now 4 times in the last 5 games hasn't gotten to 100 yards. He was abysmal again. The only game he's played well in the month of November and December was the snow game. I'm worried about the run game for Buffalo. I'm worried about the coaching staff for Buffalo. And now I'm thinking, folks, the Bills, they just come off a winning streak. I get that. They're still going to, they've won the East already. They're going to be a top 3 seed. The Steelers won yesterday. We're going to get to the Browns in a second. And I don't have any on the Steelers, but I have this. Pittsburgh didn't look all that great. Their offense wasn't cooking as much. Buffalo now all of a sudden looks beatable. It's inevitable. Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl. We had all this talk for 3 or 4 weeks. I think it's done.
I picked them to go back to the Super Bowl in our redo on Friday's show, and I tweeted this out last night because everybody's saying this is the Chiefs, this is the worst the Chiefs are, this is a bad Chiefs team. Okay, if a bad Chiefs team can get to 12-1, I'm nervous of what a good Chiefs team will look like. So absolutely, yes, I do think the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl. I think that they're winning these games, and I get the ref games and stuff like that, and you have the doink win last night. But the bottom line is they are putting themselves in positions to win. It doesn't matter if they're a good team or a bad team. They're a well-coached team with a great quarterback. And I think if they have to go through Pittsburgh or Buffalo to get into the Super Bowl, I think they have a shot at winning either of those games, whoever they play in the AFC Championship. So yes, I do. I think the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl for a 3rd straight year.
I don't think, at least on the Pittsburgh Steelers end, that you can judge a team just solely on how they play against their division opponents. We've talked about this on this show before. Division games are always close games, regardless of record. Cleveland puts up a fight against Pittsburgh. What was even the question, the overreaction? Is it an overreaction to say the Chiefs are going again?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's an overreaction at all. Buffalo's got a shot. Pittsburgh's got a shot. There's a couple AFC teams that got a shot. But the Chiefs play close games and know how to win close games.
Yeah.
That's hard to beat, man.
Yep. I'm still on the Chargers bandwagon. They almost beat the Chiefs last night.
All right. I got one more, guys. I know we got about a minute and a half left on the Cleveland Browns side. Jameis has had great last couple of games, but he's too erratic. The guy throws balls all over the place. We know Deshaun Watson is a cancer on the team in many people's eyes. Browns are going to have high pick in the 1st round. You know who they should draft? A quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. Not an overreaction at all. Absolutely. They draft a quarterback in the 1st round.
Huge overreaction. Have you seen the quarterback class? Pass.
Yeah, but that's when the Browns make a quarterback selection.
I'm just saying, they're not going to get Shadur Sanders, who's the best quarterback in this class, and I don't think he's even really a top 15,
so
16
Shador,
quarterback.
Who do you have as
Cam Ward is the next most talented player that's coming up at the quarterback position. There's a lot of questions on him. A lot of the schematics, the high-level football. He has the tools, but boy, there's just a lot of question marks there, and I'm not throwing a franchise like Cleveland into that mess.
Sure. Well, yeah, and it'll be an Eli Manning situation if they try to draft.
I'll tell you what, though, guys, with the way C.J. Stroud played in his rookie year, with the way that Jaden Daniels is looking, if you're Cleveland and you're looking at a guy like a Jalen Milroe, why not take a shot?
Oh, gosh,
Athletic, mobile quarterback. No. Okay, I'm just saying, can throw the football down the field. He's got a pretty deep ball. Okay, he'd be better than Bryce Young.
As a Steelers fan,
I disagree with that too.
As a Steelers fan, yes, take Jalen Milrow in the first round.
Yeah, fair
I am
enough.
perfectly fine with that.
Milrow should go back to
be
college,
determined. Either way, Winston is not the answer. Erie, thanks so much for joining us today. This was a fun one. My name is Nick Artman. I'm signing off for Paul Adamzak, Rich Smith, Isaac Petcash. That's it. We're done. Have fun.